Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out the Youbi XV-130 quadcopter that has been sent in for review by GearBest.com. Now, I have had a lot of requests for this one. A lot of people are dubbing it as the Atom V2 clone, but I'll tell you right away that it kind of looks like the Atom, but the way that they have constructed this is completely different to the Atom. It's actually a little bit bigger as well. I think the Atom's a 120mm size quadcopter, around about that size. This is a 130mm quadcopter. So before I waste anyone's time waiting for you to get to the end of the video, this is a fantastic product. I have been really impressed with it. I have had to make a couple of modifications to it, but I'll talk about that in a bit. First of all, I want to talk about the specs of this thing. So, it has 1306 3600 kV motors and 20 amp ESCs. They are a block of ESCs that sit on some standoffs inside there, and they are flashed with BL Halley S, so that's quite impressive. So 20 amp ESCs and 1306 motors means that it takes a 4-cell battery, which is fantastic. So we also have got a built-in VTX in the flight controller, so it's an SP Racing F3 flight controller. And then we have one of these little 3-gram CMOS cameras up the front there. They are 600 TV line with a field of view of about 170 degrees. The ones that we are used to with these smaller aircraft. I have put many of these cameras on micro quadcopters. And then we have got the 3-inch 4-leaf propellers. So we should be getting some really nice thrust out of that. And we have this carbon fiber frame here and then this plastic cover. Now, a downside to this is that the carbon isn't very thick, you see, and it flexes quite a lot, and this is going to cause vibrations to come through to the camera. And also you'll see as well, as the ESC is built into the standoffs in here, you can see we don't have any ESCs on the arms, which is quite nice. And these motor wires here are actually recessed into the frame, and that is so that this canopy sits over the top. But again, that is making the arms a little bit weaker, but to be honest, I didn't find that a problem at all. So this is the 4-cell battery that I am using. It's a generic one here, but it is 850 milliamp. It's a 50C2 100C burst battery, and I sourced these locally. Quite a nice battery. Just looking at the frame underneath here, and you can see that all of the screws, every single one of them, is recessed. Now, one of the things that I have had to add is this little rubber strip here. It's actually 2 sticky back strips of tape that I have put on here, and that's so the battery doesn't move about, because it really slides when it's placed on here with this battery strap. So you'll see that I have a couple of modifications here. First of all, we have the antenna. Now this is a TBS antenna that I have added here, and luckily it is SMA, but you get given this dipole antenna here out of the box, and I didn't get good results out of it at all. It was breaking up too much for me, so I replaced it. Now this is a bind and fly, I guess you would say, but there's no receiver included with this, so I have put a small S-Bus FreeSky receiver in there, and I'll show you how I did that. And then I bound it to my Tyrannus Plus here. So yeah, I modified the antenna. I say modified, I just put on a new antenna. These TBS antennas, by the way, very good. And you'll see out the back here we have an XT60 poking out, and that is because it comes with an XT30 connector. Now, I don't have any batteries with XT30 connectors, and really I don't intend on getting any because I don't find them very secure. What I did first of all is I made up a adapter here and then plugged that into there. The problem is though, with the vibrations off these motors, that would slowly vibrate out. In fact, it just so easily comes out of there. I reckon just flipping around would cause it to come out. And after a few flights, I found that the battery was coming out in the air and it was dropping to the ground. So what I did was I took the canopy off, and under here on the power distribution board / ESC board, there's 2 extra solder pads that you can solder an XT60, and I had to cut away a bit of the cowling there to get that in, but actually that wasn't too much of a problem. I was worried that I was going to sort of mess it up and damage the cowling, but something that does happen with this one is that the back propellers do slightly catch the cowling on full throttle. Can you see there? We have got some marks on there, so the cowling got damaged anyways, and you can kind of buy spare parts of these as well. They come in different colours. I really like this grey one though. I don't like how it says awesome on the top there. It sort of cheapens it a little bit, and I think it's better than that. One thing that concerned me with this one when I got it is it's a dead cat formation here, and you can see that the back 2 motors are closer together than the front 2. And when I reviewed that JJ Pro T1, that flew awful, and it was down to those 2 motors being too close together at the back. This one has 4-leaf propellers, so I will have to see how it flies, especially with it being brushless as well. I'm hoping that it's gonna fly nicer. And one good thing about this is it comes with Betaflight 3.01, which to this date is the latest version, so no need to mess around flashing that because we're all using Betaflight now. And the problem is though, there's no way to access the USB port in there, and also no way to access the VTX as well. And one good thing about this is the VTX is power switchable between 25 milliwatts, 200 milliwatts and 400 milliwatts, so that is good. However, you again have to take this top off to access any of that. Another thing that might be a consideration for you is that this camera is at quite an angle and it cannot be adjusted. We have this plate in here, it's like a plastic plate, and the camera is hot glued onto that, and then the plate is screwed in here as well. I didn't find that a problem. It's not too much of an angle for me, but if you like to fly a bit slower, then that might be a consideration for you. So let's look what else you get given in this package, because I was quite impressed with this actually. So you can see there that I have installed this battery strap. Now I wish it was installed from standard because it's quite hard to get through these little slots here. You have to take it apart anyways to put your receiver in. I'll show you me doing that, but you get given a spare battery strap, which I think is really cool because I really struggle with battery straps for these micros. Now you get given this, and I think this is pretty cool. So it is a 4S model, but it will fly off a 3S as well, so you get given this tiny XT30 connector to JST if you just want to fly it off 3S. However, I was really interested in flying this one off 4S, so I went and did this modification there. And again, don't like the XT30 connector there. So you get given 2 of these cables, right? This is one for PPM, and that will plug straight into a PPM receiver. And you are given an S-Bus one as well, which is just another one of these JST connectors here, but the signal wire is a couple more over, and of course I have installed that on the quadcopter. So really like what you get in the package with this one. and you also get a spare set of these 4-blade propellers, which is really nice. Of course, you're going to need something to view the FPV feed, and again I'll be using my Fat Shark Dominator V2s with the Fat Shark diversity receiver there, on-way antenna, and also the Menace RC patch antenna there as well. Now the VTX is 40 channel, and you can switch between the band and the channel. It's just one button, but sadly you can't change it once this canopy is on. So I can see a lot of people maybe leaving this canopy off. However, this time of year when there's a lot of wet grass around, I found the canopy to be absolutely fantastic. Actually, it'd get covered in grass and I could just wipe it down. I didn't need to drill a hole for my antenna either, by the way. I just poked it through the top here. You've got some little vents on the top, and that just went through there quite nicely. Anyways, let's get a hex driver and take this thing apart, and I'll show you what I have done with this. So I have taken the top off here, and you have to be very careful with these screws because they are metal screws going into nylon standoffs, and if you tighten them too much then it could break the thread, so be careful with that. Yep, so we've got nylon standoffs at the back here, and then just 2 nylon nuts on top of the flight controller. Got the USB coming out of the side there, and I'm using this little receiver here. It's the FX F800. Now this was very kindly sent in to me by Lee from Painless 360, so thank you, Lee. I'm sure a lot of you are subscribed to the Painless 360 channel anyways, but if not, definitely go check Lee out. He is definitely an inspiration for me for this channel, and I use his videos a lot when it comes to tutorials and things like that. So thank you, Lee. He has also done a review of this receiver, so check that out too. But yeah, he sent this to me to check out, and this is the little S-bus connector there, so it goes into the side there. And then what I have done is, you can see that we have got 2 servo connectors there. So this is the servo connector that goes into the receiver. And then what I have done is, with a spare flight controller that I had, I have taken 3 of these pins and then just put them in that servo connector like that, and then this servo connector, and then connected them together. It's a bit lazy. I could have soldered a wire up, but I think a lot of people really like plug and play stuff, and I'm a big fan of that. So I just used some double-sided tape to stick down the receiver to this flight controller. So then we have the built-in VTX here. It's really nice, and then we have the button to change stuff up. And then you can see underneath here I took all these standoffs off and the nylon nut, and then I soldered in this XT60 connector and then just cut a little bit away of this canopy here. I would strongly recommend doing that because most of my batteries come with a XT60 connector, and my charger doesn't have a connector to charge a XT30 connector battery either. So you can see the camera up front there just hot glued in, and the lens is pretty secure as well. I don't want to move it because the focus of it is pretty decent, but if you are out of focus then I guess you could twist that and put it back into focus. Something that I haven't talked about here, and you can see it here just about, I have installed a miniature buzzer. So you don't get an on-screen display with this, and you don't get a buzzer, but this flight controller has a slot for a buzzer. So I just soldered it directly to the flight controller. It just about fits. These are some little buzzers that I got off AliExpress. It's also the same buzzer that you can get from Banggood as well for the QX70. So that just solders in there. In fact, I showed how to do that in the QX70 video if you want to check that out. And then I set a position on my Taranis to have the buzzer go off on a switch, but also it's connected to the VBAT. So we can use this buzzer to go off when the battery's getting low as well. I think they could have included that with this, but I guess they didn't to keep the price down, but it was really easy to add that. So that was cool. Okay, so I just want to show you how the VTX works, because we just have the one button to control everything, and to do that I'm going to plug the battery in. So make sure that you have your antenna on here, and I'm also going to need to turn on the transmitter as well, otherwise this buzzer's going to keep going off. So let's plug this in here. Okay, so you can see there that it's flashing E1 at the moment. It's a little bit tricky, this, I have found. You have to press the button down for a couple of seconds and then the bands will start flashing. So 1, 2, and there you go. It will cycle through the different bands. So if you then want to select band A, when it gets to it, C, D, E, A, press the button, and then we're now on A1, and then you can then cycle through all the channels on that band there, and then there we go. Now if you want to change the power of the VTX, you have to hold it down for about 4 seconds. There we go, see where it says 3 there. So now if I press through, we've got 1, 2 and 3. So 1 is 25 milliwatts, 2 200, and then 3 is 400. So I'm gonna hold that down, and then we are back on A1. So a little bit confusing, but you can get there. Here we are in the Betaflight configurator. I'm first of all going to calibrate the accelerometer, ensuring the quad is on a flat surface. I'm then going to enable expert mode so I can access the failsafe options later. Into the ports tab, and we don't have anything selected for the serial RX for our receiver. I've selected it on the UART2, but that's incorrect. It needs to be the UART3, so I changed that up in a bit. Into the configuration tab, and we've got quad X set up there and one shot 125 for the ESCs. We have the min throttle currently set at 1070 and the max at 2000, which is correct. So I need to change the receiver type here to RX serial for S-Bus and S-Bus down here too. And then all of the other settings I'm going to leave the same. I'm just checking that everything is correct, and then I need to save and reboot it. So next I'm going to check that the failsafe is set to drop. So just checking that tab, and it is. So nothing more I need to do there. Under the PID tuning, now I don't like how low these PIDs are. They seem really low to me, so I'm going to bump them up to a PID tune that I know works quite well from stock. So that is 60 or 0.6 on the roll and pitch on the P gain. Then on the I, I'm going to bump that up to 45 for both of those axes as well. And then on the D, I'm going to put that up to 50. The D is too high. No, it's fine. It's going to fly nice. Your motors are going to get too warm. No, they're not. It's -2 outside. So I'm bumping up the super rate to 0.8 here. And then I'm going to set the RC Expo to 0, because these are all the stock settings that come on it. So they have played about with it a little bit. And also in angle mode, I'm going to bump that up to 50 because I like a little bit more throw on my angle, and also on the horizon self level as well. So I'm just going to check all of these settings are to my liking. Just going to scroll down to see if there's anything else that I need to change, but it seems not. So I'm going to save that tab and move on. So the next tab is the receiver tab, but I don't have the battery plugged into the quadcopter, so I need to do that to switch the receiver on. So you'll see the battery appear at the top there with the VBAT, but still nothing is working. So I have the wrong UART selected on the serial RX. So I'm going to change that to UART3, and then of course you need to save and reboot that. And then if I go to the receiver tab, you can see there that we have something, but it's set to the wrong channel map. So I need to go and change that to TAER and then save, and you'll see everything looks correct. I'm just going to check my auxiliary channels. So I've got 3 switches set up there, one for the buzzer, one for angle, horizon, and acro mode. So these are the stock modes. So we've got air modes there as well, but I'm going to select a switch up to arm on my auxiliary 2. That's a 2-position switch on the Tyrannus. So I'm just moving that in there to make sure that works. I'm removing air mode because I don't really like it. Then the angle and horizon is working on my 3-position switch on auxiliary 1. And I'm going to add a beeper in here on auxiliary 3 as well, so I can set that up as a lost model alarm. Onto the motors tab, and it's time to calibrate the ESCs. So you need to disconnect the battery at this point, put the master lever up to the top, and then plug the battery back in, and you'll get the magic tones. Of course, do this with the propellers off, please. And then drag the master down, and then that's your ESCs calibrated. So the next thing that I'm going to do is check where the minimum throttle is going to sit at. So leaving the battery in, I'm going to lift up the master tab, and I can see that the motors are all spinning nicely at a very low RPM at about 1040. So I'm then going to go into the configuration tab and set my minimum throttle to about 44. I like to have it a little bit higher. Don't like to have it too low, otherwise it can get quite unstable when you are descending while flying. So I've changed that, and then save and rebooting that. Next, I'm going to check BL Heli Suite. So there's a configurator now, but this is the old one there. So I'm just pressing connect and then checking all of the ESCs there, and press OK. And you can see there that we have BL Heli S 16.4, which is the current version. So I'm going to turn braking on for all of the ESCs. I'm just making sure that that's going to action all of them. So I'm going to write the setup there. That means that the motors will stop quicker when we disarm. And I'm going to change the beacon delay to 2 minutes. That's where the ESCs start bleeping after a couple of minutes if you are lost in long grass. And I'm going to press OK on there and disconnect. Okay, let's go for a line of sight flight. First of all, this is actually the maiden as well, so I'm going to keep it in an angle mode. Then if there's no problems, switch to acro. So I've got my arming switch here as well. Let's go. It's actually very quiet. Really quiet. It's got so much power, this thing. Let's go for the punch. Oh, so much power. But that's to be expected on a force out. I think this thing's going to be good. Tune doesn't seem too bad. It's so quiet. That's impressive. These motors with these props seems like a good combination. Okay, we're in acro now. Seems snappy. Not a huge amount of vibrations coming from it, so I think the tune seems pretty good. Of course, I won't know until I have flown at FPV. Go for a slow loop. Getting used to this flying line of sight acro business. Oh, this looks like it's good. Seems like there's no issue so far with it being a dead cat configuration with the motors at the back being closer together. That might be because the propellers at the back are very wide and it feels really stable to me. Snappy rolls, snappy flips. This is looking like a good one. Let's come in for a landing and let's go do some FPV. So here is the DVR footage from the Fat Sharks, and just as I suspected, it flies fantastic. Now, this isn't the best time of day to be showcasing this camera because I know this camera well, it's been used a lot, but it is dusk here, and it does struggle when the sun is on the horizon. For the dynamic range, you can see that some of the ground is being washed out there by darkness. But I know that in better conditions this camera is good. Now you will also notice a slight vibration, especially when I do a punch out, and we're getting some jello on the footage there, and I don't think that is avoidable with the fact that this frame is a little bit thinner than I'm used to. So I didn't put my Mobius Mini on the top there. I think you could put a Mobius Mini on the top, but if this camera is getting jello, then the Mobius definitely will. So that's why I didn't do that. Just testing the range out there, but I'm trying to keep it in close because this field is so muddy. With the VTX in that 400 milliwatt position, the range is fantastic. I was getting 120 meters, no problem. You see, I'm not getting a lot of breakup either because I've got that TBS antenna on there. That is a must for me. You must switch out the antenna. I found it almost unflyable with the amount of breakup that I was getting with the stock antenna. Something that's fantastic about these mini quads as well, or micro quadcopter should I say, this is a 130 size. The battery is almost as big as the quadcopter at 850 milliamps, and I was getting a 6.5 minute flight time out of that, which is impressive. By the end of this flight, I was sort of waiting for the beeper to go off, and it never did. It's just fantastic. So it's really good for that. And just look how fast this thing is as well. You wouldn't know it was a 130 size quad. It's flying about like it's a 220 4S size quadcopter on a 5-inch, so that is impressive. But there you go, that is my review of the Youbi XV-130. It definitely has my stamp of approval. There is some work to do with it, but that is the case with a lot of these RTF quotation marks quadcopters. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe, and I'll leave you with some flying. Cheers.